Welcome to the Test Management Mindset, insights into the world of software testing. The best content by PractiTest in audio form, designed to keep you inspired wherever you are. In today's episode, we're on the topic of SAP upgrades and how to survive them. Practical tips and insights from experts and the community to help you tackle the challenges of SAP upgrade and testing. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive? Today, we're tackling those massive, sometimes intimidating SAP system upgrades.
And specifically, we're zeroing in on the crucial part, testing.
Because let's face it, you don't just launch a newly upgraded SAP system without making sure it's, well, space-worthy.
Exactly. And to guide us, we're using the SAP Upgrade Survival Guide. It's an ebook packed with real-world advice, the kind of stuff you learn on the front lines.
So think of this deep dive as your pre-flight checklist, making sure your system not only survives the upgrade, but comes out stronger.
And that's where testing comes in. It's not just a formality.
Right, it's not just checking a box.
It's an investment. It's about protecting what you've put into the upgrade, making sure it actually delivers and runs smoothly.
Okay, so let's talk about the challenges. The ebook lays out 5 major hurdles you're likely to face. What's the first one?
Well, first you've got scope complexity. SAP systems, they're complex, a lot of interconnected parts.
Right, like a giant spider web, lots of little threads all connected. Exactly. So testing. It's not just about checking if the individual modules work. It's about how they work together, the whole picture.
Got it. So no testing in a vacuum. What's next?
Then there's the whole issue of getting everyone on board. Different departments, different priorities.
Right, like herding cats, I imagine.
The ebook calls it cross-organizational collaboration. A mouthful, but it basically means getting everyone singing from the same hymn sheet. If you don't, miscommunication. That's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, no one wants a system upgrade to devolve into departmental warfare.
Yeah.
All right, so scope, complexity, and communication breakdowns. What else can trip us up?
Data integrity. Huge one. It's not enough to just transfer data over.
Yeah.
It has to be accurate, consistent in the new system.
Right, imagine all the chaos if your financial records got scrambled during the upgrade. Talk about a migraine.
Absolutely. It'd be a nightmare to untangle.
So we've got 3 big ones: scope, communication, and data integrity. What are the last 2 challenges?
Time. Upgrades often happen during those really busy periods. You know, the times when you really can't afford any downtime.
Yeah, definitely adds to the pressure. Efficiency is key. What's the last challenge on our list?
Regulatory compliance. Failing to meet standards, that's not just a technical glitch.
Right, you're talking penalties, lawsuits, reputational damage.
It can be really serious. So yeah, you need to make sure the system's not just working, but it's working by the book.
So we've got these 5 treacherous mountains to climb. It sounds like thorough testing is our safety harness and our experienced guide.
Exactly. It's all about risk mitigation, making sure everything runs like clockwork, people are comfortable using the new system, and ultimately you get the benefits you paid for. That's the goal.
Okay, so test thoroughly is basically rule number 1 in our upgrade survival guide. Now, this ebook isn't just about pointing out the dangers. It gives a roadmap too. Where do we even begin?
Well, it starts with what they call setting the stage. It's all about prep work. Think of it like planning a big expedition. You've got to identify the essential supplies, figure out your route, and assemble a team you can rely on.
Okay, so no, just winging it. What are the essential supplies in SAP upgrade?
First, you figure out the mission-critical processes. These are the things your organization can't live without.
The lifelines, so to speak.
Exactly, like your sales order process, financial reporting, anything vital to your day-to-day operations. Got to make sure those work perfectly in the new system.
Okay, so prioritize those mission-critical processes. What's next on our prep list?
Defining clear goals. What are you hoping to achieve with this upgrade? Faster processing, better reporting, smoother user experience.
Right, having that destination in mind. No wandering around aimlessly.
Exactly. Clear goals, focus your testing, and make sure everyone's working towards the same thing.
Okay, goals are set. What about that crack team you mentioned earlier?
Right. The ebook really emphasizes getting the right people involved, not just your SAP gurus and your QA pros.
You need the people who actually use the system every day, right?
Absolutely. Their input is gold. They know what works, what doesn't, and what the new system really needs to deliver.
Makes sense. The ebook actually has this cool story about a global manufacturer that avoided a major disaster during their upgrade, all because they focused on their high revenue transactions right away.
Right. They knew certain things were absolutely critical to their bottom line, like processing those big orders or managing inventory in real time.
They went straight to the heart of their operations, huh?
They did. Tested those processes first, made sure they were bulletproof in the new system. Smart move.
Save them a lot of headaches and probably a lot of money too. So we've set the stage, figured out our route, assembled our team. Now it's time to build that testing strategy, right?
Right. And the SAP Upgrade Survival Guide outlines 4 key strategies to make sure you're testing effectively.
Okay, I'm all ears. Hit me with the first one.
First up, risk-based approach. It's all about focusing your efforts where they matter most. Prioritizing.
So not trying to test absolutely everything, but focusing on the areas where a failure would be the most painful. Kind of like triage in an emergency room.
Exactly. The ebook gives this example of a retail company. They knew their order-to-ship process was absolutely critical, so that's where they concentrated their testing efforts. No bottlenecks, no glitches, making sure customers get their packages.
Makes sense. So they focused on the part that directly impacted their customers and their revenue. What's strategy number 2?
Parallel testing. Imagine you've got 2 versions of your system running side by side, the old one and the new one. Then you run the same transactions on both and compare.
Like a spot the difference game, but for your SAP system.
Exactly. It can uncover subtle inconsistencies that other testing methods might miss. The ebook talks about this logistics company. They were using parallel testing to check their route optimization system. And guess what? They found a mismatch in their algorithms.
Ooh, that could have caused some serious delivery delays if they hadn't caught it.
Exactly. Parallel testing helps you spot those hidden gremlins in the code.
All right, so risk-based testing and parallel testing. What's strategy number 3?
This one might sound a bit dry, but it's crucial. Enhancing test data management.
Okay, break that down for me. What does that actually mean?
Using realistic data that reflects your actual business operations, not just making stuff up. We're using data that mirrors real transactions, customers' real-world scenarios.
Ah, so your test data has to be as accurate and as detailed as possible.
Precisely. There's a good example in the ebook about a finance company that was testing its interest calculation module. They made sure to include all sorts of edge cases in their data, leap years, variable interest rates, things like that.
So even those rare, weird scenarios that could trip up the system.
Exactly. Got to be prepared for anything.
All right, so we've got risk-based, parallel testing, and realistic test data. What's our final strategy?
Engaging stakeholders early. We touched on this before, but it's so important it deserves its own spotlight. Get input from the people who actually use the system, the ones in the trenches.
Tapping into that frontline wisdom. They probably have insights we wouldn't even think of.
You bet. The ebook gives an example of a supply chain company that did this really well. They got their warehouse managers involved in designing test scenarios for their inventory system, and they found all sorts of potential issues with stock reconciliation that they hadn't considered before.
Wow, so they caught those problems before they became real headaches, just by involving the people who knew the system best.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got our 4 compass points for a solid testing strategy. But before we embark on this expedition, the ebook also warns us about some pretty dangerous pitfalls.
Right. It wouldn't be a survival guide without talking about the things that can trip you up.
Yeah.
These pitfalls are like quicksand. Easy to fall into if you're not careful.
All right, let's hear them so we can avoid them. What's the first one?
Insufficient test data. Pretty self-explanatory, right? Not enough data or the wrong kind of data. It can skew your results and lead to costly errors down the line.
So it's not just about the quantity of data, but the quality and how well it reflects the real world, right?
Right. The ebook talks about this retail company. They had all these problems with their inventory tracking after their upgrade. Turns out they didn't account for things like partial returns or split shipments in their test data, chaos, inaccurate stock levels, frustrated customers, the whole 9 yards.
Oof, so their system was basically flying blind because it hadn't been exposed to the messiness of real-world data.
Exactly. A good reminder to make sure your test data is thorough and covers all the bases.
So we've learned about using the right kind of data, making it as realistic as possible. What's the next pitfall lurking out there?
Non-functional testing neglect. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it basically means getting so caught up in does it work that you forget to ask how well does it work.
Okay, so it's like making sure the car starts but forgetting to check if the brakes work. Not ideal.
Exactly. You got to think about performance, security, usability. Can the system handle lots of users at once? Is it secure? Is it easy to use? Those are all critical aspects of quality. Can't overlook those.
Right, because a system that's slow, buggy, or just plain confusing to use is almost as bad as a system that doesn't work at all. The ebook had a pretty scary example of this, right?
Yeah, there's this story about a logistics company that had a major system crash after their upgrade. Turns out they hadn't done any proper load testing, didn't simulate what would happen when lots of users accessed the system at the same time. Their servers just couldn't handle it.
Wow, so their system was like a high-performance race car that had never been taken out for a test drive. Just put it straight on the track and boom.
Pretty much. Caused major delays, disruptions, all because they didn't test how the system would perform under pressure.
Okay, so lesson learned. Test for performance, security, usability. Don't just assume everything will be fine. What's the next pitfall on our list?
Lack of stakeholder involvement. We talked about engaging stakeholders early, but this pitfall shows what happens when you don't.
Ah, so this is like waiting till the last minute to get feedback when the project is already on fire.
Exactly. If you're not getting input from stakeholders throughout the testing process, you're setting yourself up for delays, rework, and a whole lot of frustration.
Makes sense. If you wait until the system is almost ready to launch to get feedback from the people who'll be using it every day, you're bound to find issues that could have been addressed much earlier.
Right. And then it's scramble time, trying to fix things at the last minute. The ebook talks about a finance organization that ran into this problem. They didn't involve their finance team early enough. And then during user acceptance testing, all these issues came up. Specific requirements, workflows that hadn't been considered. And it was almost too late to make changes without causing major delays.
Ouch, that's gotta hurt. Okay, so communication, collaboration, stakeholder involvement right from the get-go, those are key. What's the final pitfall we need to watch out for?
Over-reliance on manual testing. Now, manual testing is important, don't get me wrong, but relying on it exclusively, especially with these big, complex SAP upgrades, it's just not efficient. It's slow, prone to human error, and it can't keep up with the pace of modern software development.
Right, it's like trying to handwrite 1,000 invitations when you could just use a mail merge. There are better ways to do things.
Exactly. That's where test automation comes in. Automate those repetitive tasks, like regression testing. Free up your QA team to focus on the things that require human judgment and creativity.
So automation is like our robot assistant, doing the tedious work so we can focus on the bigger picture. The ebook has a cautionary tale about a company that fell into this trap, right?
Yeah, they were constantly finding defects after their system went live because their manual testing just couldn't keep up. They were always playing catch-up, fixing issues that should have been caught earlier. It was a mess.
Sounds exhausting. Like a never-ending game of whack-a-mole with software bugs. Okay, so the takeaway is, strike a balance. Use automation wisely, but don't forget the value of human expertise. So we've navigated those 5 treacherous challenges and avoided the 4 pitfalls of SAP upgrade testing. We're doing pretty well. What's next on our survival checklist?
Well, the SAP Upgrade Survival Guide actually provides a whole toolbox of what they call hacks and methodologies to streamline your testing efforts and ensure a smoother upgrade.
Okay, I like the sound of that. A toolbox full of testing tricks and secrets. Let's crack it open and see what's inside.
The first one is all about breaking down complexity. It's called leveraging modular testing.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this modular approach.
Think of it like tackling a giant jigsaw puzzle. Instead of trying to solve the whole thing at once, you focus on one section at a time. Same with testing. Break down the system into smaller, manageable modules and test them independently.
Divide and conquer. Apply that strategy to SAP testing. Makes sense. What's the advantage of that?
Well, it makes the whole process more manageable, easier to find and fix bugs when you're working with a smaller chunk. Plus, you can test different modules in parallel, which can speed things up. The ebook gives the example of a manufacturing company testing their SAP Materials Management module. They started with inventory management, got that working smoothly, then moved on to other functions, step by step.
Smart, like building a house one room at a time, making sure each part is solid before moving on. Okay, so that's modular testing. What's the next hack in our toolbox?
This system's all about early detection, catching defects before they become big problems. It's called adopt shift-left testing.
Shift left. That sounds interesting. I'm all for catching bugs early. Tell me more.
Traditionally, testing happened after development. Developers wrote the code, then testers tried to break it. But with shift-left, you integrate testing into the development process from the very beginning.
So it's like having a detective on the case from day one, watching every move, looking for clues before the crime even happens.
Exactly. The earlier you catch a defect, the easier and cheaper it is to fix. The ebook suggests a few ways to do this. One is to encourage close collaboration between developers and testers. No more working in silos, but working together from the start.
So break down those walls, get everyone working together towards quality. I like it. What are some other ways to shift left?
Automating as much testing as you can, especially unit testing. That involves testing individual bits of code to make sure they're working as expected. Automate that, and you can run those tests frequently, catch defects early. It's like having a robot detective constantly patrolling your code base.
I love that analogy. Always on the lookout for bugs. What's the final tip for shifting left?
Integrate testing into your CI/CD pipelines. CI/CD stands for continuous integration and continuous delivery.
Okay, so it's basically automating the entire software delivery process. Every code change is tested thoroughly before it goes live.
Exactly. And by integrating those automated tests, you're catching those bugs early and often, delivering high-quality software all the time. The ebook shares this example of a company upgrading their CRM system, really important system for them. They shifted left, involved QA from the start, and reduced integration defects by 30%.
Wow, 30%. That's huge. They must have saved a ton of time and money. Okay, shift left is officially on my list of testing best practices. What's next?
Next up, we've got utilize test automation wisely. We've already talked about the power of automation, but this hack is all about using it strategically. You don't want to automate everything. It's about choosing the right battles.
So, being smart about it, using automation where it makes the biggest impact. What kind of tasks are best suited for automation?
Repetitive tasks, like regression testing, running the same tests over and over again to make sure code changes haven't introduced new defects. Super tedious to do manually, perfect for automation.
Right. Free up those human testers from the boring stuff so they can focus on more complex tasks. What else can we automate strategically?
Integrating automation into those CI/CD pipelines we talked about. That ensures tests are run automatically whenever there's a code change. Catch those bugs early. Also, using automation frameworks. They're like toolboxes for automation.
So, like pre-built components you can assemble and customize to build your own testing system. What's the benefit of using those frameworks?
They save you time and effort by providing a standardized approach to automation. Your tests are more reliable, maintainable, and scalable. They also ensure consistency in your testing, really important for catching those subtle defects.
Okay, so automation frameworks are like having a team of expert robot builders on hand. Pretty cool. The ebook had an example of a company that really benefited from automation, right?
Yeah, there was a logistics firm that cut their testing time by 40% just by automating their regression tests.
40%, that's massive. Time is money, so they must have been thrilled with that result. Okay, so automation is clearly a game changer when it comes to testing. What's the next hack in our toolbox?
This one's all about bringing order to the chaos. It's called centralized test management.
Okay, I love the sound of that. Taming the testing beast. Tell me more.
Imagine a world where all your testing activities, manual and automated, are managed from one central location. No more spreadsheets scattered everywhere. No more confusion about who's doing what.
A tester's dream. No more drowning in a sea of documents. How do we achieve this testing utopia?
Get yourself a robust test management tool that can handle the complexity of SAP upgrades. There are a lot of good ones out there, but the ebook specifically mentions a platform called PractiTest.
So PractiTest is like mission control for all our testing efforts. We can see what's happening, track progress, make informed decisions.
Exactly. These tools act as a central hub for everything. Test cases, test scripts, test data, results. They also have features like defect tracking, reporting, dashboards. It's all there in one place.
So it's like having a bird's eye view of the entire testing landscape. See everything at a glance. What else can we do to centralize things?
Integrate your test management platform with your other tools. Your SAP Solution Manager, your issue tracking system like Jira, your CI/CD platform. Connect them all.
So create that seamless flow of information between all the different parts. No more data silos, no more delays.
Right. And then use those dashboards and visualizations to track your progress. See those key metrics, spot bottlenecks, make data-driven decisions about your testing strategy.
So it's like having a real-time dashboard in your car showing you your speed, fuel level, all that vital information. You know what's going on, and you can adjust your course if needed.
Exactly. The ebook talks about this global enterprise that was struggling to manage their testing. Multiple teams, different modules, all sorts of tools. They implemented a centralized system using PractiTest, integrated everything, and it transformed their testing. Streamlined processes, better communication, clear understanding of their progress.
So they brought order to the chaos, and it made their upgrade much smoother. I like it. Okay, what's the next hack in our arsenal?
This one's all about embracing change and adapting on the fly. It's called Adopt Agile Testing Practices.
Ah, agile. I've heard a lot about it, but how does it apply to testing specifically?
Agile is all about flexibility, collaboration, iterative development. And those principles are just as important for testing. Instead of sticking to a rigid plan that might become outdated quickly, you adapt as you go, incorporate feedback continuously, and deliver value in smaller increments.
So, like navigating a winding river, constantly adjusting your course to avoid obstacles and stay on track.
Exactly. The ebook suggests a few agile practices. One is to plan in iterative test cycles. Break your testing into shorter sprints, aligned with the different phases of your upgrade.
So, smaller chunks, get feedback early and often, adjust as you go. Makes sense. What else can we do to be more agile in our testing?
Daily stand-up meetings,
Right.
short focus meetings where the testing team talks about their progress, any roadblocks, priorities for the day.
Like a daily huddle, making sure everyone's in sync and moving in the right direction. I like it. What's the final tip for agile testing?
Continuous feedback. Talk to your stakeholders, your developers, your team members throughout the testing process. Get their input, make adjustments as needed.
So, create that constant feedback loop, make sure everyone's on the same page. The ebook has a story about a company that used agile testing to their advantage, right?
Yeah, it's about a retail company facing a tight deadline for their SAP upgrade. They knew they couldn't rely on those traditional, slow testing methods, so they went agile. Short sprints, daily stand-ups, constant feedback.
So they were like a well-oiled agile machine, adapting and delivering value incrementally, and it worked.
They delivered a defect-free system on time.
Amazing. Agile saves the day. So testing doesn't have to be this slow, rigid process. Agile makes it more adaptable, collaborative, and ultimately more successful. Okay, what's next in our testing survival kit?
This next one's all about making sure our system can handle the real world. It's called Emphasize Performance and Load Testing.
So making sure it doesn't fall apart when real users start using it?
Exactly. It's one thing for the system to work in a test environment. It's another thing entirely when it's hit with lots of users. Complex transactions, tons of data. Performance testing helps you find and fix those bottlenecks before they impact your users.
So it's like stress testing a bridge to make sure it can handle the traffic. Important. What are some ways to do this effectively?
The ebook says, simulate real-world scenarios. Use tools to generate realistic user traffic and workloads. Mimic how your system will actually be used.
So create a virtual army of users, have them attack the system, see how it holds up.
Pretty much. And focus on those high-impact areas, the critical processes that are essential to your business. Make sure those can handle the load.
Right. Prioritize those areas where a performance issue would be a disaster. What's the final tip for performance and load testing?
Monitor resource utilization during testing. Track things like CPU usage, memory consumption, database performance. Look for bottlenecks.
So, like having a team of doctors monitoring a patient's vital signs during a stress test.
Exactly. The ebook gives this example of a bank that was upgrading its transaction processing system, mission-critical system, obviously. They invested heavily in performance testing, simulated realistic traffic, and guess what? They found a major bottleneck in their database configuration. If they had gone live with that, their system would have crashed.
Wow, that would have been bad news. Imagine the headlines. Bank systems crash, customers panic. Thankfully, they caught it in time.
Right. Performance testing saved the day. It's not a luxury, it's a necessity.
Okay, I'm sold. Performance testing is going on the top of my list. What's our final hack?
This one's all about getting feedback from the end users. It's called Conduct User Acceptance Testing, UAT, effectively.
UAT, the final test before go live, the dress rehearsal before the big show.
Exactly. Give your users a chance to try out the system, give feedback, make sure it meets their needs before it's too late to make changes.
So our last chance to fine-tune everything before the curtain rises. How do we make sure UAT is effective?
Define clear criteria for your scenarios. What do you want your users to test? What are the expected outcomes? How will you know if the system is ready to launch?
So a clear roadmap for UAT. Everyone knows what they're doing and what success looks like. What else is important?
Training. Your users need to be familiar with the new system before they can test it effectively.
Right, you can't just throw them in the deep end and expect them to swim.
Exactly. Give them walkthroughs, demos, hands-on exercises. Make them comfortable using the system so they can focus on giving you valuable feedback.
So equip them with the knowledge and the skills they need. What's the final tip for effective UAT?
Capture feedback promptly and efficiently. Use templates or tools to collect feedback. Track issues, prioritize fixes, don't let anything slip through the cracks.
So a dedicated feedback channel, users know their input is valued and will be acted upon. The ebook has a story about a company that aced their UAT.
Yeah, it's about a pharmaceutical company upgrading their supply chain system. Critical system, obviously. They really involved their supply chain managers in UAT. Thorough training, clear testing scenarios, easy feedback mechanisms. And it paid off.
They found a bunch of issues they hadn't caught before.
They did. Usability issues, workflow bottlenecks. They fixed them before go live, avoided major disruptions. Plus, their supply chain managers felt valued, which made them more likely to embrace the new system.
Win-win. Better system, happier users. That's the dream, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've explored all 7 hacks for SAP upgrade testing. It's been quite a journey. But before we move on, I think it's worth highlighting a key theme that's emerged throughout this discussion. Testing isn't just a technical task, it's strategic. It can make or break a company in today's world.
Absolutely. People often see testing as a necessary evil, something that slows things down. But it's actually the foundation of quality. And quality is what sets successful companies apart.
Right. In today's digital world, quality is non-negotiable. And testing is how you achieve it.
It's not just about finding bugs. It's about making sure the software is robust, reliable, secure, and enjoyable to use.
Well said. Okay, let's see what the SAP Upgrade Survival Guide has to say in its conclusion.
It wraps up by saying that testing SAP upgrades is challenging, but the rewards are worth it.
Not for the faint of heart, but essential for success.
Right. By using a clear roadmap, strategic hacks, and the right methodologies, you can mitigate those risks, improve efficiency, and ensure your business keeps running smoothly.
So the right tools, the right mindset, and the right approach. What's the ebook's final word of advice?
They say, remember, meticulous planning, collaboration, and the right tools are key. As you embark on your next upgrade, use these insights to ensure a smoother journey and a more robust outcome. Your organization's success depends on it. Master the art of testing today.
Powerful stuff. Really drives home the importance of getting this right. Okay, we've covered a lot. Challenges, strategies, pitfalls, hacks. But there's one crucial element that I think deserves more attention. The ebook doesn't really address it directly.
Oh, wow.
The human element. How do you prepare your team for a new system? How do you get them excited about it? How do you make sure they actually use it effectively?
The people side of things. You're absolutely right. That's crucial. We can get so caught up in the technical stuff that we forget about the human beings who will be using the system every day.
Exactly. So how do we address that? How do we win hearts and minds during an SAP upgrade? That's something I'd love to explore further.
Me too. It's a topic that deserves its own deep dive.
Okay, so last time we were talking about that human element of SAP upgrades, the people side of things. It's easy to get so focused on the tech that we forget about the people who'll actually be using these systems.
Absolutely. You can have the most amazing system, all the bells and whistles, but if your users hate it or don't know how to use it, it's a failure. It's like, what's the point of a fancy spaceship if the astronauts don't know how to fly it?
Exactly. All that time, all that money, and no one's using it. So how do we avoid that? How do we make sure our upgrades are a success for everyone, not just the tech team?
Communication. That's key. People are afraid of what they don't understand.
Right, they fear the unknown.
So you got to keep them informed every step of the way. What's happening, why it's happening, how it will affect them.
And that means more than just sending out a few emails.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about real conversations. Addressing concerns, making people feel heard, putting yourself in their shoes.
Right. Imagine you're comfortable with a system, you know how it works, and suddenly everything's changing. It can be unsettling, especially when it's something you use every day for your job.
Exactly. And the bigger the change, the more resistance you're going to face. So communication is about building trust, making sure people feel like they're part of the process, not just having it forced on them.
So collaboration is key.
Absolutely. And you know what else helps build that trust and get people excited about the new system? Involving them in the testing.
Right. We talked about UAT, user acceptance testing, last time. And it's not just about finding bugs. It's about giving users a chance to shape the new system, make it work for them.
Exactly. They go from skeptics to advocates. They see the improvements, they voice their concerns, they feel like they own it.
So it's not just, here's the new system, deal with it.
Nope. It's a partnership. We're in this together.
I like that. Okay, so communication and involvement. What else is crucial for making sure these upgrades are a success for everyone?
Training. You can't skimp on that. Even the most user-friendly system will require some training. especially if there are big changes to how people do their work.
Right, because even if the system is amazing, if people don't know how to use it, they'll get frustrated, make mistakes, and that defeats the whole purpose.
Exactly. And training shouldn't be a one-time thing, you know?
It needs to be ongoing.
Absolutely. Start early, continue even after the system goes live, and tailor it to different groups. Some people just need a basic overview. Others might need more in-depth training on specific things.
Right, because everyone learns differently and has different needs. So make it personalized.
Exactly. And hands-on stuff is key. Exercises, simulations, maybe even some games to make it fun. You want people to be able to apply what they've learned.
Make it engaging. And even after the training, there needs to be support, right?
Oh, definitely. A knowledge base, online tutorials, maybe even dedicated support staff to answer questions.
Like a safety net. People know that help is available if they get stuck.
Exactly. And, you know, another important thing, celebrating successes.
Oh, that's so important. It's
Yeah.
easy to focus on the problems and the delays.
But you got to acknowledge the wins, big and small. Recognize the people who are embracing the change.
Yeah.
Highlight the positive impact the new system is having.
Create a buzz around it. Show people that it's not all doom and gloom. There are real benefits.
Exactly. It's a team effort, and everyone deserves to feel good about their contribution.
Oh, turn that upgrade into a success story. Okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground today, both the technical and the human aspects of SAP upgrade testing.
It's been a journey.
It has. And while the technical stuff is crucial, I think the takeaway here is that the human element is what makes or breaks these projects.
Totally agree.
So communicate clearly, involve your users, train them well, celebrate the wins. That's how you turn an SAP upgrade into a positive experience for everyone.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive into the world of SAP upgrade testing. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
We hope you learned something new and useful. Until next time, happy testing.